We're travelling on the main road from Delhi to Kaladhungi in northern India, which lies in the foothills of the Himalayas.
Oh God, look at that.
These are typical scenes which you'll find on every crowded Indian road, and which earns it the dubious distinction of being the country with the highest road casualty rate. We are heading towards the home of Jim Corbett, the world famous hunter turned naturalist, who loved both India and his friends the people of rural India.
Buffalo in the water.
Jim is best remembered for his 6 best-selling books. They tell the story of not only the many man-eating tigers and leopards that he killed, but also the wildlife and people of this region. His winter home at Kaladhungi has now been turned into a museum, attracting many visitors from both India and overseas. Not far from Jim's home, we arrive at Camp Corbett, situated in an area christened by Jim as the farmyard. This is where he grew up, knowing the forest like the back of his hand. We spent 3 days in Camp Corbett, mostly walking in the area, or sat just watching the wildlife. The first bird you hear every morning is the blue whistling thrush. It's the world's largest thrush. In Jim's time, it was known as the whistling schoolboy. Next to our cottage, we built a small drinking pool to try and attract the local birds to drink and bathe. Just to the left of the oriental white-eyes, you can see a shy black-chinned babbler. The great tit in India looks a little different from its European relative, but it is the same bird. The last birds to drink were the red-billed letharix, a delightful little visitor. The pathways round the camp were alive with blue tiger butterflies. Common Indian crows, and the striped tiger, also known as the monarch butterfly. We now move carefully down to the Kaladhungi Canal, which is a Victorian engineering marvel. There are bathing ghats on the canal, which are used by the villagers. These ghats are also mentioned in Jim Corbett's books, as a place where he spent his childhood guarding his sisters while they bathed in the canal. The canal was built in the mid-1800s and survives in great shape today. Though the Bow River running alongside is often dry, it is amazing to see the flow of water in the canal. Even to this day, the villagers have a constant supply of fresh water. At the head of the canal, where the canal draws water from the Bow River, Jim constructed his jungled studio. It was here, sat in a tree, that he succeeded in filming 7 tigers. Corbett National Park was established in 1936. Once a popular hunting ground of the British, this huge park was named in honour of Jim Corbett, who spent most of his years in this area and contributed in setting up this tiger reserve. Corbett is well known for its huge forests, mainly consisting of sal, one of India's finest hardwoods. This tall broadleaf tree sheds its leaves in March, covering the floor with its huge leaves which can be the size of dinner plates. We are now travelling towards the Sultan Forest Rest House, the first of 4 rest houses that we will use on this trip. At dusk, just outside the forest rest house, we found a hawk moth, which was one of 10,000 species of moth that can be found in India. We left the Sultan Forest Rest House the following morning at dawn. We drove for a little while and then we just stopped and listened to the amazing sounds all around us. Listen carefully and you can pick out the call of the common hawk cuckoo or brain fever bird, shouting out, "Brain fever, brain fever." The Ranganga River, complete with gharials, is the main water source of the reserve. Right next to it, and hidden away in the trees, lies the Gharial Forest Rest House, which we used as a breakfast stop. Here is Crocodile Pool, full of marcia. This fish and tigers were the favourite quarry of the British during the time they ruled India. And of course where you see fish, you'll find the exclusive fish eater, the gharial. We arrive at the entrance to the lower Chow range of Corbett. The general public rarely visit this area, so we had miles of forest just to ourselves. Our next stay was at the Lower Chow Forest Rest House. These rest houses were built when India was part of the British Empire. They are now well over 100 years old. The British used them for their periods of leave, as in those days it would take far too long to travel back to the UK. There are usually 2 bedrooms, a dining room and a kitchen. But what they all have in common is an excellent location. Moving away from Lower Chow, we cross the Mandal River, which flows into the Ramganga, the main river of Corbett. Unfortunately, our route out of the park was blocked by this bull elephant. There are secretions from the glands at the side of the head, which can be a sign of highly aggressive behaviour, so we just had to wait till it went on its way. Then we headed along the north of the park to a small village for shelter and a cup of masala chai, India's spicy tea. Next stop is the Sonodani Reserve, which joins onto the northern part of Corbett National Park. We will be staying at Halder Perot, which is one of the oldest rest houses in the park. After a quick lunch we set out. If you want to see good numbers of wild elephants in their truest habitat, then Halder Perot is the best destination. However, unfortunately, we did not see one. This was due to a group of nomads and their animals moving through the park. We did, however, find a kill, hidden in the long grass, but you could not venture near it. As this part of the park was very disturbed, we headed back towards Corbett. Passing small hamlets and stopping of course for a cup of chai. We entered Corbett at Kandar Ridge, which is over 1,000 metres and is the highest part of the national park. Jim Corbett walked along these paths and stayed in this forest rest house when he hunted the Kandar man-eater.
Yeah, beautiful.
Different type of color, red, green, yellow, green.
Yeah.
We are now dropping down to Dakala, located at the core of the national park. The old rest house was built over 100 years ago and still looks magnificent today. In front of the rest house there is an excellent view over the Corbett grasslands known as the Chow. The long grass here is favoured by cheetal deer and elephants. Early the following morning we visited the Chow, seeing and hearing black francolin. However, our main aim was to video elephants. The herd was quite relaxed at first, but then became increasingly more nervous. Then through the forest of legs we glimpsed a very young calf, which explained everything. Unfortunately, our presence seemed to upset a young bull elephant, who became increasingly aggressive and forced us to back away. Relaxing at a nearby watchtower and looking into the distance, we could see the hills at Kanda where we passed through yesterday. At the base of the watchtower, a large group of cheetle rested in the heat of the day. Further along the track, we came across a jeep which had just missed seeing a tiger. Close to the jeep we found these tiger pug marks. Both Langer and Samba could sense there was a predator nearby. And in the end we found this tiger well hidden at the top of a banking. The following dawn, we set off on a 3-hour elephant ride, going deep into the forest. At first, the wild elephants kept their distance. But in the end, we were allowed to stand close by. Leaving the forest, we moved down to cross the Ramganga River. From the far bank, we were able to watch a distant tiger leaving the river after a cool down. We then recrossed the river and climbed the far banking back to Dakala. Here you get some idea of the height of this elephant. Then we went back to the grasslands to see Hodgson's bush chat, and a tawny pipit. Note the long arched hind claw. Suddenly, a cheetle gave its alarm call. So we waited. Then this tigress appeared in the long grass. We moved out of the main park to our final destination, Riverine Woods, which is a fishing camp set in the buffer zone of the park. The access to the camp was so remote, you had to cross the Ramganga River 7 times, with the water coming over your feet inside the jeep. We were the only people staying at the camp, and it was nice just to relax and unwind. Here we have the kitchen and the staff accommodation. The restaurant overlooks most of the camp and also a drinking pool for the birds. As we were the only guests, we were given the best accommodation, which was a bit like a Swiss cottage, with hot water, electricity and a huge mango tree. We spent our time in the heat of the day just watching the activity outside the courtyard. As darkness fell, the large-tailed nightjars started to call, and we enjoyed our last evening in the heart of Corbett.